Hi, this is Kipp McClurg, one of the pastors at Vestavia Hills United Methodist Church. We're so grateful that you've joined us today and joined me today for another in our series called Scriptures for Life. Today we're looking at 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and that's called the love chapter, and many of us are familiar with it. It follows, though, to understand it, you have to understand much of what else is happening in Corinthians in the first 12 chapters. Paul, in the 13th chapter, compares and starts thinking in terms of how we think when we're children and in our early life, and then he reflects on what that means to us spiritually. It made me think about my early life and the things that mattered. And I remember when I was in middle school, at that age when you're always wanting to make sure that you're as big or as fast or as strong as everybody else, and are always comparing yourself to other people's progress in life, those measurements seem to mean a lot. And so how fast can you run the 40-yard dash, or how many free throws can you make with a basketball? How accurately can you throw the baseball to first base? How far past your toes can you touch on the floor? And for me, I was never able to touch my toes and still can't. But for whatever reason, that mattered. And so we did that. And then I remember when I was in 8th grade, there was one of the players on our football team became much more physically mature than the rest of us, and was very big and muscular young man. And we looked up to him, and often young men do that as they're in adolescence. By the time we were seniors, he was actually a little smaller than the rest of us, but in those early years, he was in that status of being strong, and the coaches always complimented him because of his abilities. What's fascinating to me is by the time you're 30, everything that I just mentioned doesn't matter. It has really nothing to do with our long-term success in life, but at the moment it seems important. When Paul is looking at the church at Corinth, he tells them that they seem to be focusing on things that really don't matter. They're immature things that a child might think of, but once we grow up, we realize that these things have no bearing whatsoever. What impressed the Corinthians were people's ability to speak in tongues, and people's ability to have prophecies and mysteries and know knowledges that no one else knew. He said some people have the faith to move mountains, and he said some people think that by giving all they have to the poor, or putting themselves through physical pain or discipline, that somehow that makes them more spiritually mature. And from the outside, it would. But Paul says on every one of those that I just listed, that they're nothing. If I speak in tongues but don't have love, it's like a clanging gong. It's just an off-pitched sound that has no value. If I have the faith to move mountains, or give all that I have to the poor, but I don't have love, then I have nothing. And then he says, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, but when I grew up, I put away those childish things. Today, we have a lot of folks who try to tell us what we need to do if we're really Christians, or we're truly followers of Jesus Christ. And so often those things, they don't actually match up to what Paul is telling us here. I hear people in the last few months saying, you have to believe exactly the way I do, and if you don't believe the way exactly that I do, then somehow you're evil, or you don't really love Jesus Christ. Or if you don't affiliate with this brand of politics or that brand of politics, then you're really not a follower of Jesus Christ. If you don't agree with this movement or this concept or this policy, then you're really not a true believer or follower of Christ. But Paul tells us that at the end of the day, what really matters and what really defines whether or not we're a follower of Jesus Christ is how well we love and how we treat other people. For if we don't treat other people with love, and if love isn't evident in our lives, then no matter what other spiritual gifts we may have, whatever movement we may affiliate with, no matter what our beliefs may be or our politics may be, if we don't love as Christ loved, then Paul says we are not the mature Christians that we think that we might be. And so at the end of the chapter, he says, and now these three remain, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these, he said, is love. And at the end of the day, the measure of our faith, the future of our hope is how we love other people and if we love them as Christ did. Thanks so much for listening today.